Brian Saunders is the filmmaker behind the feature length documentary Food Lies and host of the Peak Human podcast. He graduated from UCLA with a degree in mechanical engineering. He works as a health coach at Evolve Healthcare and co founded the health education company Sapien, as well as Sapien Centers. It's wonderful having you here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I feel like we just talked. It's great talking to you.
Absolutely. So, my first question is for you. What are the biggest takeaways that you have from the last 6 years interviewing the world's top health and wellness experts while making your film Food Lies, and also for your podcast Peak Human Performance? Peak Human.
Yeah, peak human. Well, I feel like my job is to be that communicator. I'm not the expert. I don't have a degree in nutrition, so my job is to listen to all the best people, and someone needs to do that, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to compare myself to Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he's the communicator, right? He's the one that like gets all this knowledge about space and like crazy stuff no one can understand, and he makes it understandable. So that's what I'm trying to do in the Food Lies series. It's a 6-part series now, and oh,
Oh,
well, that's weird.
we lost you. We lost your
Yeah,
video.
can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah, that's so weird. This has never happened before.
It happens on StreamYard for some reason,
Really?
I think.
It just lost. Yeah, I mean, my camera, I have a. Has so that happen? Is a StreamYard thing, or does it happen a lot, or should I?
Um, there you're back.
Hmm.
It's happened. It doesn't just jump out. Like sometimes we have problems getting people's video to work, but once
Hmm.
it's up and running, it generally stays.
Okay. Yeah, I've never had this happen. So we can just keep going and
Okay,
um
do you want to just keep going to remember where you were, or just like start a sentence ahead?
yeah, yeah. Um,
Neil,
do you remember if he's still there?
who? Jay, Jay,
Yeah.
he's there.
Do you remember where it cut out?
Okay,
Just
okay, let
start.
me do
Okay,
that.
we can do.
Okay, Brian. So, what are your biggest takeaways from the last 6 years interviewing the world's top experts in the field of health and wellness while making your documentary, Food Lies, and also from your podcast, Peak Human?
Yeah, well, it's been a long journey, 6 years full time. My health journey has been about 9 or 10 years, and I think my job is the communicator. It's I'm trying to distill all of this information into something understandable. It's all over the place, right? You can look up on Google and you'll find the exact opposite information that we'll be talking about today, or you can find things that agree with it, or you can find a third version that half agrees with it. So people need to have it be simple and have it all make sense. And along the way, that's what happened to me, where I thought there was only one way to do something, even what worked for me, and I thought this was it. And then I realized there's more ways that nutrition can work. It isn't just a one size fits all diet, even though I hate that term, right? Uh, because that's kind of a cop out, right? Because
Totally.
we're all human. We're all human though, so there are some things that make sense across the Homo sapiens species. But yes, of course, we don't all have to eat the exact same thing, right? We have people from different parts of the world and they've eaten different things. And maybe if you live closer to the equator, you can eat more fruits and vegetables and carbs and stuff like that. And then if you're more from the north, you relied more on animal foods throughout history where it was colder. And that's fine. But what they all did was eat whole foods, right? They were eating the whole foods and they were getting animal nutrition from wherever they could. So even if you're by the equator, they went out of their way to get animal foods. It's not like, oh man, we have a million bananas and we can just eat bananas all day.
Yeah.
No, they were after animal foods wherever they can get them, seafood, eggs, meat, smaller animals, and they'd eat anything they could get their hands on that was from the animal kingdom because it has so many bioavailable nutrients. So I kind of learned along the way that there's many ways to do it. There's Well, there's so many great doctors and scientists that are doing this new work that expose kind of our old idea was wrong, right? So that's another thing is we have this idea that was kind of put in place by the USDA and the government and all this stuff. And people know this 1980s, like the food pyramid, and these are the dietary guidelines, and they base them all on just what we had available, cheap processed grains, and that's what we subsidized in America, and that's what we had a lot of, and so that's what everyone thought was healthy, and it backfired, right? And now the problem is all these medical systems are set up, the pharmaceutical systems, medical systems, everything, even the agricultural systems are set up on these big industries and kind of lies and just outdated information that has turned out to be wrong. And it's really hard to find the good information, right? Like you can go on Google, right? And all you're going to get is this mainstream paradigm. And that, so it's so hard to find, well, what's the new science that's been done? Like what, like surely there must be something that refutes this stuff that didn't work, right? This low fat, high carb diet that
Yeah.
didn't work, right? So where is that information? And it's hard to find. So yeah, from all the, I mean, I've interviewed over 200 of the top doctors and scientists around the world about this stuff. And yeah, I basically am trying to put it in the film. Hopefully I can put it into this interview now so people can have some takeaways before the film, well, series, it's a 6-part series now, is ready. But a lot of it is opposite to what you've been told.
Absolutely incredible. And I mean, I can't wait for the film, the documentary to come out that started as a film, right? And your podcast definitely is one of the best and most informative. So, can you break down the biggest food lies that we've been told?
Yes, I think if you really think about the biggest food lie, I can't tell if it's either saturated fat is bad for us or if it's that all calories are the same.
Ooh,
I think
let's dig
they're
into
tied.
both.
They're
Let's dig
tied,
into
right?
both.
Yes. Because there was the initial food lie, well, we thought that all calories were the same. I don't know if we were that dumb, but we're just like, oh yeah, food is just calories, and we burn it in like a bomb calorimeter, and it just burns, and that's what all it is. And we're like, no, we're a complex organism. We don't just eat calories and it just goes into our body like it's just a science experiment. It's we're a complex system. So with that first incorrect basically assumption or hypothesis, then we thought, oh well, maybe saturated fat is bad because we well, there was competing ideas, and they thought that saturated fat was bad, thought that cholesterol was bad. Then they started thinking red meat was bad. So this was this original idea that turned out to be wrong. And so if you think all calories are the same, and then if you think that saturated fat is somehow bad, then you end up with our current food system, right? Then you end up with the dietary guidelines. They're like, well, we have a lot of cheap grains. Why don't we just make those the base of the food pyramid,
Yeah. And
right? Because
subsidize
they're like,
those foods.
yeah, if all calories are the same, then why not just fill up on something cheap and abundant?
Yeah.
So I think that it's just saturated fat's bad, cholesterol's bad, all calories are the same. That's the root of all the problems, and everything else stemmed from there. It greenlit the processed food industry. They're like, okay, well now we can make all these cheap products with super high profit margins and sell them to people and make tons of money. And then once they make tons of money, they can do all the lobbying, they can do all the marketing, they can fund all the studies, and they can do anything. They just run the whole system because they have all this money based on this initial lie.
Absolutely. So we're stuck in the system where the lies are just being perpetuated because so much information, as you mentioned, if you Google it, it's censored, right? It's being put out because of what's being marketed and who's behind the dollar spend when it comes to, putting the information online. So what can individuals do in their day-to-day life to counteract those lies, inform themselves, and also very practical application of how to change health?
Yeah. Oh, I love thinking about that because I want to give people actionable things to do,
Yeah.
right? Like when you're done with this, I want people to go home and be able to do something. And also, I just want to say one more thing about the old topic. Why would this system change if there's so much money being made? I actually looked this up for the film, and the top out of the top 5 industries in the entire US, 4 of them are around the medical system and the sick care system. The top 4 industries in the United States is pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
healthcare, all this
Mhm.
stuff. So why would they change?
No.
There's zero incentive. There's incentive to keep it the same
Yeah.
and keep the lies going. So again, very hard to go against all this information. It's censored. They don't want it. No one wants this to be out there. Not like it's some crazy conspiracy, but it's like it kind of
No.
is. I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of just like, yeah, they don't want this information to be out there. It's not like they want you to be like kill. They don't want to kill people, but they're just like, hey, we're making so much money. Let's just keep this going. So you have to actively switch your thinking on this stuff. You have to actively find people that don't have a lot of money to be made by telling you the wrong thing, right? So the first thing you need to know is that there's a difference between calories. We can think about calories, but there's nutrient calories and then there's energy calories. I think this is the simplest way to think about it is that your body wants nutrients. It wants protein, vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, right? And it wants enough energy to get through the day, right? And we've always had that throughout history. We've found the foods around you. Like I said, there's that are animal based, plant based. There are different places around the world closer to the equator. Doesn't matter. You went into nature, you found these foods, and you got all the protein and nutrients and vitamins that you needed and the right amount of energy to get you through the day. Nowadays, people, almost no one is getting enough protein and nutrients, right? And almost everyone is getting too much energy, right? These are the energy calories are from fats or carbs, right? Mainly the refined and empty fats and carbs.
Yeah.
So that their diet has shifted in the completely wrong way. So that's why people gaining fat, they're gaining visceral fat. Even if you are relatively thin, you could have tons of visceral fat inside if you're eating these wrong foods. Some people think like, oh man, my uncle, he doesn't eat very well. Like he eats like all kinds of processed foods and this and that, and he's fine. And I'm like, well, is he fine?
Yeah.
He looks. I mean, he's not obese, but he's doesn't have much muscle mass. He has like a kind of little belly, like pooch belly. He's
Yeah.
on like 3 medications.
Yeah.
He's got heartburn. He's got knee problems. All these things. That's not healthy, right? I mean, in modern society, it's normal, but that is not healthy. That's not how our hunter gatherers lived. And I went to Africa and I spent time with these people and I saw how they live, and they live well into old age and they don't have all these problems. And so we have the wrong paradigm of what's healthy nowadays.
Yeah.
And the main point there is that you can be thin and be unhealthy. You can be obese and be unhealthy. And now there's somehow campaigns to tell people that obesity is great and it's beautiful and it's amazing, right? Again, that's fine. People should be comfortable in their own skin. Everyone should be, happy with who they are, but they should be on a health journey to try to get themselves healthy, right? We cannot just say that obesity is healthy. And that's what the cover of a magazine said. It said, this is healthy. And it was a picture of an obese woman. This is not scientifically true. This is like undisputable evidence in scientific literature that as you gain more fat mass, you lose life years. You die of more things quicker. This is very obvious. So let's go back to the actionable stuff. We have nutrients versus energy. No one breaks it down like this for some reason. My buddy Dr. Ted Naiman, he's broken down the protein to energy, and he's that's amazing, and he's inspired me a lot to think of protein versus energy in your foods. But I think it goes beyond that to nutrients versus energy, because nutrients includes the vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. So all calories are not the same at all. You want more calories from nutrients, right? You want more protein, more vitamins, more minerals in your diet, more animal foods, more oysters, more liver, more organ meats, things that people don't eat anymore, more things, whole foods that have the correct amount of nutrients versus energy. And so you want more of the good calories, less of the bad calories. My grandma used to say this, my mom used to say this, don't eat empty calories. Do you remember that? Did people tell you that?
Yeah.
Don't eat empty calories.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's actually genius because they're
It
like,
is.
what are empty calories? Well, these are refined carbs or refined oils that aren't doing you any good. They have no nutrients. Why are people fat? Why do people have visceral fat or subcutaneous fat? because they ate too much of these empty calories. It's not because they ate too many oysters and they ate too much liver or they ate too many eggs. No, that is not making you fat. And there's studies that show this too. If you're overeating protein, you do not gain fat. You can overeat calories from protein and you won't gain any weight. So somehow this is not well known. No one's thinking about this. People like to go into their dietary camps, which is fine, right? Because I was like, oh man, I was keto and like I like paleo and I'm low carb. There's all these great communities, but that doesn't mean it's the end all be all, and you don't have to be in those camps, and you can maybe use them as tools in your journey. But it's not like, okay, now that if I'm not doing carnivore and I had a piece of avocado, I'm off the carnivore team and I'm unhealthy or something's going to
Yeah.
happen, right? It's like,
Yeah.
why are all these diets good? Why is paleo, keto, low carb, carnivore? Why can a pescatarian diet even be good? Because it has a proper nutrient to energy ratio. You can do a
Yeah.
good pescatarian diet, right? You're eating a lot of fish, you're eating healthy fats, and you're using butter and whole foods and whatever, fruits and vegetables you want to eat. Great. That's a perfectly good diet. I,
Yeah.
I I don't have a problem with that. Some people, they're very confused by that because they're like, oh, but that's opposite of carnivore. Like, not really. Like, your body wants nutrients and it wants energy. It doesn't care about the name of your diet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I hope that's more like actionable to people. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely love that. And I love that you kind of touched on the topic of shame. Like when we set ourselves up to be very boxed in the way that we eat or the community that we join, and there are so many that are good, we're essentially sometimes setting ourselves up to fail. Because if we don't meet the standard, or if we don't comply perfectly, there's shame involved and we may step away. So I love that you say that focus on nutrient dense food is the most important, and protein as well, and stay away from those empty calories. I mean, how much it couldn't be
Mhm.
easier. In ending, my last question is, what are the most nutrient dense foods that you eat and that you would recommend that other people start including in their diet if they're wanting to move
Mm.
towards a healthier space?
Yeah, animal-based foods. I mean, I don't dump butter on everything. I,
Yeah.
I use butter. I think butter's great, absolutely. But it's not like I'm putting butter in my coffee and then So my nutrient-dense foods are animal-based foods. It's organ meats that I try to include in my diet at least once a week. It's beef, which we're told is bad.
Yeah.
It's oysters, like I mentioned already,
Yeah.
super nutrient dense, tons of hard to get nutrients and zinc and iron and
Yeah.
copper and great stuff. Um, Eggs, absolutely. Egg yolks, especially. Don't throw away the whites, though. I mean, you can use them. But eggs are amazing. Whole foods on the side. I do fermented foods,
Yeah.
pickles, fermented foods, stuff like that. Avocado. Like, I have fruit for dessert. Like, it's amazing, right? Well, I get to eat like the most amazing diet, and that none of the stuff has ingredients, and I don't really like miss things. It's like I can eat some fruit for dessert and feel amazing and fine, and it even helps me fill up even more, uh, right? Because it adds some volume, adds some fiber. To not that fiber necessarily is needed, but this helps you fill up. This helps you. Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Whole foods, animal foods as the foundation.
I love that. And it leaves you feeling satiated and good. And there's none of that calorie counting or, tracking all your food and your macronutrients in a way that becomes obsessive, because I think that does work for somebody. But for somebody like me who has a history of eating disorders and stuff, like I have to be so careful about not becoming obsessive about stuff. And so focusing on what you said, a nutrient dense diet, mainly, a lot of animal protein and animal products and animal food as the way, and then just adding some other stuff is phenomenal. So,
Mhm.
do you have anything that you want to say before we end? Or, yeah.
Well, I have an old saying: "Eat densely, move intensely." So
Ooh,
instead of eat less, move more, which means nothing and doesn't help anyone, I say eat densely, right? Eat nutrient dense foods, like you just said, and then move intensely. The human body is made to lift heavy things and sprint and walk. It doesn't always have to be in super intense, but like, yeah, eat densely, move intensely. That's my tagline.
right. I love that so much. That's going to be for sure the title of this talk. So remember, super simple: eat densely, move intensely. I love that so much. Thank you for joining us today. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to have you on Revitafest.
Thanks, Garrett.